Hello NBA fans and welcome back to another episode of the NBA The Week That Was. Today we will be continuing the good, the bad, and the ugly series here on this channel. Today will be the 8th episode of this series and I hope you guys are enjoying it. There will be 22 episodes after this and I will probably analyze the July 31st resumption of the season after this series. So without further ado, let's get right into the next episode of the good, the bad, and the ugly series here on the NBA The Week That Was. Today, I'll be analyzing the Denver Nuggets and what went well for them this year and what really needs to be worked on moving forward. Let's start off with what went well, like always. The Nuggets have built a solid young core that's developed over the last 3 to 4 years. Last year, they defied expectations. They made the second round of the playoffs and almost took the proven and just the gritty Portland Trailblazers to the second round Game 7, and they lost in Game 7. However, they really defied expectations and set themselves up as true contenders moving forward from the West. Their main player, their franchise star, who they should focus on keeping around for his whole career, is Nikola Jokic. He's arguably the best center in the NBA. He was the 41st pick in the second round in the 2014 draft, and he's one of the best playmaking centers of all time, not just the NBA, of all time. He has insane playmaking vision, yet he's also a great post scorer, has a great mid-range shot, and can be a stretch 5 with his great three-point shot. The Nuggets have also done a really good job not pulling a New Orleans Pelicans and not building a good team around Jokic. I mentioned the Pelicans because they had a franchise center in Anthony Davis, yet they failed to build a good team around him that could push the Pelicans to contending from the West. The Nuggets have done just the opposite. They have a great second fiddle to Jokic, who is Jamal Murray, a 20-point scorer who's a point guard from Canada. He's a great scorer, as I said. He's a great three-point shooter and perfectly complements Jokic's game. They also added Michael Porter Jr., who I believe is the X factor of this Nuggets team. He's a 6'10 scoring small forward who just looks like Kevin Durant to me. He's a great shooter. He can drive and he's an athletic specimen. However, he just needs that time to develop. He suffered injuries in college, which helped him drop down in the lottery to the Nuggets, which helped the Nuggets overall. So if they really give Michael Porter Jr. that time to develop, Jamal Murray, Jokic, and Michael Porter Jr. form one of probably the best young core in the NBA. However, they still have those veterans around the wing and in the paint that support Jokic on this team. They have Paul Millsap, who is the defensive anchor of this team. In Atlanta, he developed himself as one of the best defenders in the NBA, and he can shoot the three ball. They also have another stretch four in Jeremiah Grant, who's decent at shooting threes, but he's athletic. He's so good at defense. They also have great 3-and-D wings in Gary Harris and Will Barton, who on their night can give you 20 points and defend the best player on the other team. They also have Monte Morris, who's a great backup point guard who again complements Jokic's game, which emphasizes the great job that Denver's front office has done in building a solid core around Nikola Jokic, which is crucial for the success of any NBA team if they want to become contenders from this league. This year, they played really well in pockets. I'll talk about those pockets. So whenever they worked well together, Denver's always been a great offensive team. Led by Mike Malone, their culture has always been good, which develops into a great offense, which is centered around Jokic. He's a playmaking center, which opens up the possibilities for all the other players to score, because he doesn't demand the ball as much, because he's a great passer. Malone also, due to his defensive capabilities as a coach, he really has helped this team develop as a defensive monster as well. Overall, Denver has a great culture and a great young core, which has set them up moving forward as true contenders from the West. I honestly believe, if not this year, but next year, when LeBron's getting older, Kawhi and Paul George are peaking, the Denver Nuggets are going to be the contenders from the West. Yes, I believe that next year, in the 2021-2022 NBA season, the Denver Nuggets will be the Western Conference representatives in the NBA Finals. However, as I mentioned, the Nuggets were good in pockets this year, which means they were quite inconsistent. While Jokic was always consistently a great center, getting his 20 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists a game, other players really, if it was their night, they would play well. But as a team, there were only a few games where they really played well together. Many expected Gary Harris to take that next step that he showed he could take in last season. However, he stayed at the same level and probably played worse. Will Barton was again consistent. And he just, stayed at that 3-and-D level. Paul Millsap is, of course, getting older. And Jamal Murray, on his night, could give you 30 points. However, some nights he would only give you 10 points and go 4 for 14 from the field. So the only consistent piece in Denver this year, I believe, was Nikola Jokic. All their other role players, Millsap, Porter Jr., Murray, Jeremiah Grant, all these other guys that I mentioned, they were inconsistent, while Jokic was the only piece who was always working in that Denver machine. What Denver really needs to work on is their consistency. I understand it's a young team. However, if they're already being so successful, I feel that if they can gain that consistency from their players, if Jamal Murray can always give you more than 15 points, if Millsap can always hold his head on defense, if Gary Harris will always knock down 3 or 4 3-pointers a game, that's when Denver will take that next step that I just mentioned and become those true contenders from the Western Conference, becoming better than teams like the Lakers and the Clippers per se. And with that, we wrap up the 8th episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA The Week That Was. If you enjoyed this episode, as always, please leave a like down below, and if you're new on the channel, subscribe with notifications on as well. I'll catch you guys in the next episode of the NBA The Week That Was. See ya!